Basketball.
It's time to strap in and get ready. The Insight NBA team is in the arena, bringing you the ultimate play-by-play on who's hot and who's not to help you win your leagues and dominate your mates. You're now hooping with your hosts, Matty G, Skitty, and Mally for the Insight NBA show.
G'day, everyone. Happy NBA season. We are in the kickoff. This is one of my favorite episodes to do. I did it over 5 parts last year, but I thought I'd hold it back this year until day one. Because for me, the question is, what's next? How do you win your league? And I'm going to go over 5 keys to success today that you can use today, tomorrow, pretty much every day of the fantasy season to help you win the league. Because all of the homework was done. We did the homework. We did the mock drafts. We did the 9-cat. We did the 11-cat. We did the 12-man. We did the 20-man. And we've done pretty much everything in between. And we've given you that advice along the way. And today it falls down to, well, what do you do now? Because your season is not won, nor, if it wasn't great for you, lost based on the success or the misses of your draft. It takes work. It's a season long. It's 82 games in the NBA. And depending on your season, this could be the next 20 weeks of tactics, statistics, data gathering, riding the waiver wire, getting fed up with injuries, probably needing a new phone because you throw yours against a wall at some point, if you're so inclined, many years ago. Shout out Russell Crowe reference. But this is what we're looking at. And as a proud Papa Bear, it's halftime right now. The Lakers-Minnesota Timberwolves game, just saw Bronny James step on the court. 2 minutes and 41 seconds. And that's important. And you might ask, wait, are you telling us to put, is G telling us to put Bronny James in our team, speaking him up? I'm like, absolutely not. But his 2 minutes and 41 seconds is actually a really valuable lesson that we can take for fantasy basketball. And we can take things from that game, even at halftime, and from the first game between the Boston Celtics, absolutely demolishing the New York Knicks, and we can take things away from that. So I'm going to break down these 5 things for you during the course of this episode and give you these 5 keys to success. Before I go much further, let me shout out to our sponsors, Standard Squeeze. You can get their apparel, their 4-in-1s, all of their gear online by using promo code IFS15 to get 15% off your purchase and get onto that one there. They've got the Travelers. It's with Christmas only a couple months away. You know, get into it early, use the promo code and get there. Now, rule number 1, and I put him up there, big man, Karl Anthony Towns today. Again, like I said, the Knicks, you can probably call them whatever you want. They suck today. Let's be honest. Be active. Hit the wires and trade away. I call this the rule of Mally. One of my co-analysts here at Insight NBA, Matty Mally, he is a trade demon. Rule number 1 is to be active because this is where you can win or lose your league based on the draft. So I said it's not won or lost there because it's not. But if you sit on that as like your base for everything you're going to do for the rest of the season, well, congratulations, you've lost your league. I'm just going to say it how it is. Because if you just sit there with your same roster, look, unless you had an absolutely incredible draft, let's be honest, if you had an incredible draft, people were just passing over the best blokes on the board for an entire round and they were falling to you and you were just rubbing your hands together with casual delight and taking the best bloke off the board. Well, great job. Well done. And then next thing, imagine they stay healthy. In an ideal world, we want every single NBA player to be healthy. Why? Because we don't want anything bad to happen to anyone. We don't want a bloke to go down, not even our opponent, because we're wishing bad things on human beings. We don't want that. We want good things. So if you're that successful and your bloke plays for miraculously 82 games, Kawhi Leonard, if you draft him in an IR spot, and we hear he comes back in like 3 weeks' time, 2.5 weeks' time, and then all of a sudden the Clippers need him. He's like, you know what? I'm going to give back-to-backs a go, and he's elite. Hallelujah. Sing from the rooftops. But we know that's not a reality. So therefore, winning and losing your draft off that is not going to happen. You need to be active. So therefore, you need to hit the waiver wires and you need to be active with trades. Look for where you're succeeding. Look for where you're like losing, obviously, but also look for those really fine middle grounds. Why? Because those are the cats, especially in category leagues, not so much point leagues, where your weeks hang in the balance. Now, in 9 cats, we all know it's 5. If it goes for 1 win as your week, you need to win 5 or 4, and that's great. But what happens if it's counting cats? What happens if you're in a counting categories league and you're perpetually stuck in a 5-4 mess and you're middle? You're just mid. And then some weeks when you lose, you're losing 8-1. You're going to be down cats really, really quickly and chasing wins. And I'll talk about chasing wins later. One of the main ways to do this is to free up some spot. Maybe make a really nice nifty 2-for-1 trade. Here's a good idea. As I said, get active with your trades. Find a bloke you can use, throw another guy on, free up a roster spot, and use that as a streaming and waiver wire spot. Again, don't be silly with that. Don't just go throw any guy in there who's going to be value. But do you have a guy who's the end of your roster, maybe a flyer that's not working out, maybe someone likes him, it's a homer pick, maybe they're just doing what you can get off the wire. Don't just hold to the value because you drafted the bloke. Don't do that. If you can get the exact same thing off the waiver wire, you can pick that up and a guy's like, oh, look, I'll add this piece. Maybe it works. And look, it is a good trade. If it's a good bloke you're putting onto that trade in a 2-for-1, that's a benefit for the guy you're trading with, especially if they have an absolutely cruddy bloke that's worse than the second guy you're adding that they can drop. That's a value trade. That could be seen as win-win. It frees up a spot for you. You got to chase that waiver wire and hit it hard. You're making trades. You're being active in your league. And that's addressing key number 1. Key number 2 today is trend setting. Watch minutes, injuries, and rotations. And this is going to quickly bring me back to my Bronny James thing. Now, we all know that today he was going to go out there and play with his dad. JJ already came out and said, we're going to lift the Band-Aid off early. We're going to let him go out there and play with his father the first time in the history of the league. We're going to let it happen. And that was awesome. And it was great. LeBron tried to set him up a couple of times. He missed a couple of shots, but it was 2 minutes and 41 seconds on the court where Bronny James got 1 rebound and was 0 from the field. Now, those 2 minutes and 41 seconds have to go somewhere, because we know that they were additive minutes today for the whole sake of the experience. And when Bronny gets assigned to the G League, those minutes are going to go. Now, we know Jared Vanderbilt. We know his injuries. This is, again, the Lakers are a great little look at this point. Like, they're really a good look, because what happens next, the whole thing of this pod can literally be looked at with the Lakers game today. Because we know guys who are going to get minutes out there, like maybe you Cam Reddish, he plays or doesn't play. That's up to coach's decision. But we know Jared Vanderbilt's going to get minutes, a great defender. So where do they go? Rui Hachimura, starting small forward today, playing like an MVP. Hello, Rui Hachimura stock, especially while he's out. Well, there's your rotation. There's your minutes. I picked him up in a couple of leagues off the waiver wires. He was sitting there. Now I'm going to use that while Vanderbilt's out, but then I'll throw him back like a fish into the ocean, and Rui can swim on away back to his whiskeys or whatever he's making in his Jordan bloody 8s or whatever they are that look fantastic that I probably still need to find a pair one day. But there's going to be minutes and rotations. You need to pay attention to these. These are the trends that set the pace for minutes and production in fantasy basketball. What's also interesting with the Lakers today is Max Christie. Often undrafted, not having an excellent game by any means by way of offense. He's made a couple of free throws from the line. He's been 0 of 3 from 3 at halftime. But he's out there playing defense, one-on-one isolation ball against Anthony Edwards. What does that mean? Well, it means that the Lakers are going to trust this bloke. They're literally giving Max Christie, I think he's third year now, against one of the best offensive players in the NBA in Anthony Edwards. They're throwing the defensive keys over to Max Christie. That's awesome, because you might be able to stream Christie in, especially in an injury-depleted lineup. Look at him on your waiver wire. Bring him into your squad. He's probably going to be more efficient from the field. He's a willing passer because he's always just doffing his cap to the greatness of LeBron and AD, and Reeves is out there playing good basketball. And this is generally what's going to happen with these guys. What's also interesting is Gabe Vincent's out there. Now, Gabe hasn't been very effective, 0 from 1, but he's out there disrupting. Do you need steals? Do you need some assists? Is Gabe Vincent going to get minutes? Well, this is the trends that you need to look for in your league. Look at those rotations. And this is also related to injuries. Again, with no guys like Jackson Hayes getting minutes. Well, we know he's going to get minutes because there's no Christian Wood currently. He's out. Maybe he gets some minutes some night, and other nights it's Jackson Hayes, even though Hayes is pretty good. Vanderbilt's out. Rui's going to get some additional minutes. Dalton Connect, rookie, came out there, hit his first 2 shots, getting minutes straight out of the gate. We know the Lakers need offense. JJ Redick could drive him. We need to pay attention to these. So that's why trend setting is really good. And be the guy in your league to be actively watching these things. Watch the trends on Yahoo. Watch the trends on ESPN. Who's being added for the back-to-back set? Who's being picked up and who's being dropped? Who can you claim off the waivers? That's really interesting. The third thing is this, and I'm talking to everyone out here because this is probably one of the hardest things for any human being, let alone fantasy basketball player, to accept. Key 3, be wrong. That's right. Be wrong. Accept it and move on. You have to be fallible because no one is right. No one is 100% right 100% of the time. It's a human improbability, let alone a fantasy basketball probability. Like, no one's going to get it right. And you didn't. I didn't. I stuff up. You did. You stuffed up. We all make mistakes maybe in our draft, didn't take a guy that we should have, or maybe you picked up a waiver wire guy that you really want to hold for that back-to-back set, and you maybe have some more ads. But we want to be right so much. It's called, for those that don't know, it's called confirmation bias. If we have an opinion, the first little even inkling that we get that's right, we'll just take to that. Even if like some other evidence might cloud the waters and murky a little bit, confirmation bias is so important because it ties into what's called anchoring bias. And anchoring bias is this thing that holds you down. So if you believe that Luka is the 3rd best player in fantasy and his calf injury, let's say, happens again and he's niggling, and you want to hold on to him if you don't have an IR, or someone's offering you a trade and it may be like someone else in the first round, maybe it's Jason Tatum and someone else. You're like, no, I'm not going to trade my first round pick for another first round pick. I'm not going to get rid of a top 5 bloke. Never. Well, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice. You've got to be open to it. Well, Jason Tatum he's going to have an incredible season. He had an incredible game today. First player in NBA history to shoot 70% from the floor. What was it? 70% from the floor. Here we go. I brought it up here before. I do have it here. He was the first ever player to get 70% from the floor with 30 plus points and 10 assists. Huge day for Tatum. For all those who are wondering if he was first round value this year, they must be just thinking like, yep, very proud that I took him. But you've got to be wrong in your draft points because you're not going to get it right all the time. Now, I get it. To be fair, I get it right a lot. Like, that's kind of like my responsibility when I give this information, is to try and be as right as I can, but I'm not going to get it right. Mally, Skiddy, Matrix, our team's not going to get it right. To all the analysts I love and adore, we're not going to get it right. We're all going to be wrong at a point. And the great thing about fantasy is you don't have to say sorry. You just got to drop the bloke or trade him or get rid of him. You've got to admit to yourself that you're wrong. You need to accept it and move on, because that's going to help drive you forward for success in your fantasy season. This ties back to being active. This ties back to the trends being set. And this falls to the whole thing of being wrong. If we hold ourselves to the draft positional value of a guy being the be all and end all, well, and then he has a good game, by the way, like Mikal Bridges last year. I mean, Mikal Bridges today had an absolute stinker. Let's be honest, he absolutely sucked. I was in so many group chats. Shout out to the Molten chat. Shout out to all the Insight leagues. We're trying to figure out what's just going on with Mikal Bridges' jump shot. I'm playing with my son. I see my phone like 20 messages deep, and everyone's talking about this. The hitch is back from Villanova. It looks horrible. What's going on? It's broken again. I'm like, mate, they've got to fix this. And you might have expelled a 4th round pick on Mikal Bridges, and you are scratching your head right now. So let's just say, worst case scenario, Mikal Bridges isn't going to return that value for us in the season. Fair. Let's go over his box score for a real second. Use Mikal Bridges, who, by the way, I am not shitting on Mikal Bridges. Let me be very clear. I am not using this as a hate speech Mikal Bridges thing, because Mikal Bridges is one of my favorite players in the NBA. He has been since Phoenix, but I can admit when the guy hasn't had a great performance, because I look at the box score and the first thing I see, like Mally and I say, points at the sexy girl at the party in the dress. You're like, whew, noticed her really quickly. You see 16. And you're thinking, oh, it's not so bad in the starting lineup. It's the second most in the starting lineup for them. Well, he played 34 minutes, which is great. That's Thibodeau minutes. But look at it. In the end of it, he was 7 from 13. But he was 2 from 7 from 3. He was even missing, for someone who has been the NBA leader in corner threes made for the last 2 seasons, he was missing wide open looks. So he's 2 from 7 for your 3-point percentage. If you're in a 3-point percentage league, 28%. That does not look good. There is no steals, there is no blocks, and there is 2 assists. He was absolutely pummeled today. Boston came out of the gates firing, tying, I believe, the NBA record for 3-pointers made. And they had tying or one behind, but whatever it was, they had multiple chances in the last 5 minutes, by all reports, to hit the shots to get the record, to be the NBA all-time 3-points leaders. You know what? There's 81 more games. And if they look that good against the Knicks, imagine the devastation these blokes could ruin against the Washington Wizards or the Pistons or one of the very bottom teams in the NBA. A little bit of a trip north to Canada to the Raptors and dropping a casual 43s because they were quite content to take them. But they looked insane. But again, if you invested that 4th round pick in Mikal Bridges today and you see an empty box score like that, well, it's not going to be very good. And you're not going to be feeling very good about that investment. And if you hold to that being the investment, well, maybe you do when he comes back and returns some value. He will be better than that, though. And that's going to fit into key number 5. And we'll get to that not too far because we're here for a good time today, not a long time, just like your pizza back in the 80s or 90s. If I don't wrap this up in 30 minutes, your pizza's free. And again, I'm not buying your pizza because I'm going to hit you with number 4 right now. Know your shit. I said it last year. It's know your SHIT for those who are playing the word game. This is it. You need to check your settings and check them now. This is great when you ask questions. We've got guys in a couple of Insight leagues like, hey, do we have IR spots? When do our playoffs start? When's the trade deadline? Negotiate this with your commissioner as well, because your commissioner governs these things. And a lot of these things go on default. I know that I've done default. I probably have to move my trade deadline in one of my leagues. And I have to tell that to the guys because I'm like, maybe it hasn't lined up because these all go off default. You might have to expand them. Maybe your commission didn't look at it. And it's really easy just to get the boys or the girls or your friends and the family or whoever's in your league. It's really easy to get all these people involved. And it's really easy just to go default, set, league invitation, add. But what that means for you is, okay, how many waiver wire ads do you have this week? Can I ask you? When do they process? Are you in a daily league or are you in a weekly league? Are you in rotisserie or did you join a points league by accident thinking you were in a head-to-head league? Because if you did that, well, your draft starts, you're going to have to be active to make ground back there. You need to know your settings because sometimes we just go on default. Or did you draft in a points league that's changed the format and you missed that in the group text message this week or last year, whatever it was, when after, next year we're going to make it this. And you saw that, and it's been since, the season wrapped back in April last year, and we're still this year, really. And we're here again, and you forgot about that. You need to know your settings because it's very important, especially for trades, because it's going to fit in very, very nicely to our 5th point. Because the key about knowing the settings in your league is about you being able to do the last, 3 pieces of advice. This is going to know when you can trade away. This is going to know when you can hit your waiver wire. This is knowing the trends and being able to use those to get guys of value, knowing when to pick up value, who is replacing on injuries, how long are you going to hold them for? If you're going to hold a guy that might be on your team and playing good minutes for 2 weeks past the trade deadline and they're returning players coming back, you want to move them a week before the trade deadline in your league to give that other person 3 weeks of value so you can recoup something while they're flying at their peak and it's a sell high opportunity. You're going to get that back because in 3 weeks, they're going to be back down to like 12 minutes a night instead of playing 25, 28 minutes a night and not being the same fantasy asset that they were. It's really important that you know your settings. Check them now. Like just after this podcast, because you've already liked and subscribed, you've done that, you've hit the bell, you've done I want to hear more of this from Maddie and from Mally and from Skitty and G. You've done all that. No, just go and check your settings. Just do it the second that this pod ends because you need to know these. Because also maybe other blokes in your league, maybe some other girls in your league, maybe some of your other friends in the league haven't done that. And then you're the one who has to ask the message in chat to commissioner, hey, commish, just notice that this is not right. Can you confirm? It's like, I forgot to move it. Great. Well, then your league needs to know about that. And you've been the one who's been active in your league. You've been setting the trends. You've been following those. And you've been okay with being wrong. You've accepted it and you're moving on. All of those things fit in for you knowing your stuff in your league. And I'm going to come now to the last point. Key 5 is this. Great LeBron graphic. Home Alone. I should have probably put Macaulay Culkin up there, to be honest. But look, key 5 is don't panic. Don't rush to chase wins. Now, this all very much fundamentally comes down to some simple points in this. How long is your season? When does your season finish? Now, if your playoffs kick off in week 18, 19, and 20, or is it 19, 20, 21, or are you going into the dog dark days of the NBA in week 22? When has it been set on default for your league? Because the later the season gets, the more we know shenanigans are going to happen, and that works against us. So what we're really trying to do here is we're not trying to panic now, especially if we know our settings. We don't have to now because the schedule is very, very interesting. And if you look at the NBA schedule, there is going to be some guys who panic because they might lose their week this week and they've got great players. Hey, the Dallas Mavericks, guess what? They've got 2 games this week. Yeah, it's week 1 and they've got two games. And every other team in the NBA, apart from some others, have 3. The Denver Nuggets, they have 2 this week. The Miami Heat, they have 2. The Knicks, they have 2, and they played 1 today. So the Knicks are done for the rest of the week. For all those who just picked up Miles McBride, think he's going to go for a heat check, you're going to have to hold him for 1 more game. And some teams haven't even played 3 games. You've just spent one of your waiver wire ads for 1 more game on a bloke when you could have used it to get 2 more guys off a back-to-back set that's coming up over a chock-full weekend campaign where there's 10 games over 2 days for 2 days, and you've got 1 more game left of Miles McBride. Love the guy. Think Deuce is a great player. Going to be a scorcher off the bench. But you could have picked him up maybe then. You preemptively just go, oh, this guy's hot. Now, again, yes, you're following trends. You're doing the thing. You're seeing who's getting minutes in Thibodeau's system. But it's when do you do that? This is why you can't just panic add and you can't panic trade, because the teams who are playing 2 games this week include the Heat, the Knicks, as I said, the Kings, the Spurs. That's Victor Wembanyama, the Utah Jazz, and the Washington Wizards. Lord bless them. But the Wizards actually back that up. And this is where Jordan Poole can become a target. Because guys like Jordan Poole have 2 games this week. Wait, am I saying Jordan Poole's a target? Yes, I am. He'll be better than he was last year. Mark my words on it. They've got 2 games this week, then 3 games, then 3 games. No other team in the NBA has the similar schedule to start the season than the Washington Wizards. So this is why if you are a Poole owner, a Alex Sarr owner, if you are a Kuzma owner, Below Calabole, any of those Wizards guys, and you're not seeing them put up the big stats in your category leagues and your points leagues, it's because you didn't know that they've only playing 8 games across 3 weeks of basketball. And in the exact same amount of time, the Chicago Bulls play 10. Yeah, they've got 3, 3, and 4. And a lot of other teams have 3, 4, and 4. And most of the others are playing those 11 games or 10 games, but not those guys. They've only got the 8. So you're missing out some games. Now, it might be, if you do the averages, it's just under, but those owners might be panicking. What makes it worse or exacerbated for that is the Wizards go 2, 3, 3, 4, 3, 3. Then they hit the 6 and a 2, a 3, but then they've got a really nice back end of schedule of mostly 4s, which is one of the strongest in the NBA because of that. It causes that ripple effect later. So this is where those guys, you want to see who are the owners. So by the same tact, if the guys who own those blokes are panicking, this is where if you are being active, following the trends and doing all the other things I spoke about early, you can sneak in and get some value. What about those Milwaukee Bucks? 3, 3, 4, 3. They're fine. Not going to have any much panic owning there. But what about the Lakers? Could you get some sneaky Reeves or Russell stock because people aren't going to generally easily move off an Anthony Davis or LeBron James? Maybe you do. They've got 3, 3, 4, 3, 3. Maybe. But again, knowing that little key bit of information for the Washington Wizards might actually recoup you some value. And if you have a look at those games played, if you look for that throughout your season, you can get you back some value by being active, trading, knowing the trends, knowing the minutes, because this is what's important. And that's really important as well come fantasy playoff time for those Wizards, because by the time it kicks into week 17, they're 3, 3, 5, 3, 4, 4, 4. So if you are in a league that does go back really, really deeply, that's where you can get some of this value or make moves and make trades. But again, the whole thing is not to panic. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some. And in a week, especially week 1, where so many teams with great elite fantasy players, look at it. I mean, the Mavericks have Luka and Kyrie, and they're only playing 2 games. The Nuggets, Jamal Murray, of course, Nikola Jokic there. Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo. The New York Knicks, we've got Cat, Miles Bridges, Mikal Bridges has to make some back. OG Anunoby, not a huge night for him tonight. Now, he was doing all the things that he needed to, but he only scored 4 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists on 1 from 7 shooting. He stunk tonight. He's going to be better than that. 0 from 4 from 3. And the Knicks have got to be better than that. But that's the point. If you're looking at these panic trades and they play 3 games next week, it's going to be a little bit different. The Sacramento Kings and the Spurs, maybe not so much so. De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis, they're going to be off the hook, and that's going to be fine. 2 games this week, and then they move into 3 consecutive weeks of 4 games. The Jazz, 2, 4, 3, 4. Maybe your Lowry Markkanen owners or your Keontae George owners get a little bit panicked, but not so much. But again, the Wizards, 2, 3, 3. They're going to panic. So this is where if you do own guys in those teams and you're getting losses in your first couple of weeks, by not panicking, you'll be okay. Or if you do panic a little bit, make sure you're not taking lower value than what your players are worth, because they are still worth exactly almost what you paid for them after 2 weeks of the season, because there's this recency bias where if a player sucks, like Mikal Bridges today, we're all going to say that he's terrible and we're going to quickly get cents on the dollar for what we paid. You need to be able to breathe and don't panic. So let's go through the 5 rules. Number 1, before they're the 5 keys for your success. Number 1, be active. Hit the waivers and trade away in your league. Don't hold to who you've got. Get moving. Number 2, trend setting. Watch the minutes, injuries, and rotations across the NBA. How is that being influenced, and how can you pick up value on your waiver wire or in those trades that I mentioned earlier on? Number 3, be wrong. Accept it. Move on. We never get this thing right all the time, and neither do you. And that's why we need to be okay with that and make our moves in our league effectively after that one. Key number 4, know your stuff. Check your settings now. Make sure you're all across the deadlines that you need to get in your league, how many ads you've got, how many IR spots. That's going to make you a much more effective. If you've got 2 IR spots and you picked up a guy on auto draft by accident, you draft, stash him in there now. Pick up someone. Go and do it. But you're not going to know that unless you can get amongst it in your league. And number 5 is don't panic. Don't rush to chase wins in the first 2 weeks of the season. Set yourself up with success. Set yourself up by doing that as well by liking and subscribing to all things Insight. You can do that right now by clicking on subscribe, getting notifications turned on for when we drop our podcast and our YouTube episodes. And you can set yourself up for financial success and that dream home one day by reaching out to Ryan at Astute Newstead. His link is down below. He's put many Australians into their dream home, especially if your interest rates are higher than 6.8%. He has, well, more than 5 keys of success to help ensure your financial freedom on your mortgage. Make sure you reach out to Ryan at Astute Newstead and tell him that, hey, I caught your ad on Insight, and hook us up, mate. If you can help us out and take care of our situation, make sure you get into all things, including our Patreon as well. That is now live for ad-free content, all the chats and all the things. I am Matty G. This is Insight. Thank you so much. We'll take you soon. There's your 5 keys, and under 30 minutes, your pizza is still free.